During the late 40s and the mid-50s, Volvo had their first real success with the PV model. It was premiered in 1944 and was sold for 14 years. It was very popular in Sweden because most other European or American cars couldn't take the harsh conditions of the Swedish winter, and the only other competition that Volvo had was the Saab 92, that had a two-stroke engine and drained oil like crazy, was painfully slow and wasn't very practical. 450,000 PVs were sold, 50,000 of them in the US. The PV was sold in three variants, the 444, the 544 and the 445, also called the Duet. The 444 and 544 were small people's cars and the Duet was a station wagon. The 444 and the 544 came with 1.4-liter four-cylinder engines that made 38 horsepower and good gas mileage from 1944 to 1956, and a slightly bigger 1.5-liter four-cylinder from 1957 to 1958 that made 20 extra horsepower. They all came with 3-speed manual transmissions, but in 1954, the sales of the PV and the Duet were at an all-time low, and they figured that they needed an update. Volvo realized that the competitors were introducing new car designs with wider bodies and were bigger on the inside than Volvo's PV. Volvo also thought the design of the PV was outdated already. It would take a few years to develop a good replacer for the PV, so Volvo started prototyping. The project was named Project 55, and the design job was given mainly to the Norwegian car designer Unveil. He made some prototypes like the P179, this one, and this one. He then stuck to this one, that would be on the production car. The Amazon was also supposed to have fins in the rear, like the American sports cars, to appeal more to those customers, but the idea was scrapped. In 1954, Volvo gave the green light and development would start. Volvo wanted the name Amazon, but unfortunately, the moped manufacturer Kreidler already used it. After some negotiation, Volvo were allowed to use the name in Sweden, so in the rest of the world it was named the 121 or the 122. The Amazon would originally have used the B14 engine from the PV, but it would be too underpowered for the car, so they put the B16 in for the first 5 years and then the B18 after that. The B16 was a 1.4-liter four-cylinder with a carburetor and a cast iron block, so it was pretty heavy. It made 60 horsepower. The B18 was basically the same, except a bigger 1.8 or 2-liter displacement. It made 80 horsepower. The Amazon had a 3 or 4-speed manual or a 3-speed automatic transmission that went to the rear wheels. It had disc brakes in the front and drum brakes in the rear. It had 15-inch wheels and a solid rear axle with spiral springs and independent suspension in the front. It was also the first car ever to come standard with 3-point seat belts. The Amazon came in 2 or 4-door sedans and a 5-door station wagon. There was also a cheaper version called the Amazon Favorit, a cheaper and more basic variant that was sold briefly from 1966 to 68, near the end of the production run. The Volvo Amazon was first shown in Volvo dealers in Skövde in 1956. The public liked it, and just 2 years after launch, it had outsold the PV. It was a massive success, and it was the first profit since a couple of years. The year that the Amazon sold the most was in 1966.
Ekipage med nummer 32, Carl Magnus Skog med Lennart Berggren vid sin sida i Amazonen. Och de grundlade tidigt en placering i toppen, en placering som de så småningom utvecklade till seger.
The Amazon was also successful in rallying. Volvo's factory driver, Carl Magnus Skog, won the Acropolis Rally in Greece in 1965, driving a 122S. Because the driving side of the road in Sweden was switched in 1967, and the model was offered in the US, the Amazon was the first Volvo to be offered with both right and left-hand steering. A sporty version called the 123 GT was offered in 1967, with a 115 horsepower B18 engine, stiffer suspension and less weight. The Volvo Amazon was a perfect car for both the summer and the harsh winter in Sweden. In the commercials, they talked about how long it lasted and how you could drive it like you hate it, and how safe it was.
A lot of people, we're convinced, go out and buy a new car every 2 or 3 years. Not so much because they want a new car, but more because they're fed up with their present car. If you're one of these people, buy a car that won't bug you. Volvo, Volvos are built so well, they're driven an average of 11 years in Sweden.
Stark, trygg, elegant. Vilken framåtanda.
That's why it sold so good. The Amazon sold almost 700,000 times, 300,000 of them in Sweden. After 1967, the four-door sedan wasn't available because of its replacement, the Volvo 144. In the last production year, 1970, the wagon was also gone. The last Volvo Amazon was made on the 3rd of June 1970. The Amazon is now a classic here in Sweden. Only 8% of the ones made still exist. You can still see some 15,000 registered ones still driving around in the summer. It's so beloved here that there's even a song about it. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe for more videos like this. I'm trying to reach 100 subs, so it would really help out a lot.